Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Dimitri, and this channel is all about the stories that America forgot. We're talking about ghost towns, unsolved mysteries, historical events that sound too crazy to be true, but they are. So hit that subscribe button, because we've got a hell of a story for you today. Let's get into it. Paradise, California doesn't exist anymore. Not the way you think. The official story is that the Camp Fire destroyed it on November 8, 2018, killing 85 people and forcing the evacuation of 50,000 residents. But I have evidence that Paradise was evacuated again, completely and permanently, on March 15, 2019. And this time, it wasn't because of fire. It was because of what the fire uncovered. What had been sleeping beneath the town for decades. What the nearby Beale Air Force Base had been monitoring since 1962. What finally woke up. Right now, if you drive through Paradise, you'll see construction crews, new homes being built, families supposedly moving back. But look closer. Those aren't real families. They're military contractors. Those aren't homes. They're monitoring stations, disguised as suburban housing. Paradise isn't being rebuilt. It's being contained. Because what's underneath it can't be allowed to spread. I know this sounds insane. I know it sounds like conspiracy theory nonsense, but I have photographs, documents, testimonies from the real residents who were forced to leave in March 2019 and are now living under assumed names, forbidden to talk about what they saw. Most importantly, I have medical records showing that every single person who lived in Paradise for more than 5 years has the same unusual changes in their blood chemistry. Changes that shouldn't be possible. Changes that started accelerating after the campfire disturbed the soil. Let me start from the beginning. The campfire was real. It did destroy most of Paradise. But the fire wasn't random. It followed specific patterns that make no sense for a wildfire. It burned in perfect geometric shapes in some areas, left certain buildings untouched while destroying everything around them. Most tellingly, it burned hottest and longest over specific coordinates that match exactly with underground installations built in the 1960s. I first learned about this from Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a geologist who was sent to Paradise in January 2019 to assess soil stability for rebuilding efforts. What she found had nothing to do with soil stability and everything to do with why Paradise had to be evacuated permanently. The fire had melted through something, she told me in an encrypted call from her safe house in Canada. About 30 feet down, there were these chambers, metal chambers, old ones, maybe from the 60s. They were cracked, broken open by the heat expansion. And something had been inside them. Something that wasn't there anymore. The chambers were hexagonal, about 6 feet across, made of an alloy that doesn't match any known military or civilian specification. There were 1,247 of them in a perfect grid pattern beneath Paradise. Each one had contained something. Based on the residue, something organic. Something that had been in suspended animation. Something that the fire had released. Dr. Mitchell took samples before the military arrived. She had them analyzed at a private lab using a false identity. The results were beyond disturbing. The residue contained DNA, but not any DNA that should exist. It was human, but modified. Extra chromosomes, genes that don't occur in nature, markers suggesting extreme longevity, enhanced radiation resistance, and the ability to survive in environments that would kill normal humans. It was like someone had been experimenting with creating super soldiers, Dr. Mitchell explained. But this was from the 60s. We didn't have this technology in the 60s. We don't have this technology now, not officially. The connection to Beale Air Force Base, located just 40 miles from Paradise, is undeniable. Beale has been home to some of the most classified military projects since the Cold War. The U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Blackbird. But those were just the programs they admitted to. The real work at Beale was always underground, always biological, always about preparing for a war that wasn't against other nations, but against something else entirely. I've obtained classified documents from 1962 describing Project Threshold. The official goal was to create humans capable of surviving nuclear war, radiation-resistant, disease-immune, able to hibernate for extended periods. The unofficial goal, hidden in classified appendices, was darker. They weren't preparing humans to survive nuclear war. They were preparing humans to survive something else, something they expected to arrive, something they'd detected but couldn't understand. The documents reference anomalous signals from beneath the Sierra Nevada foothills, signals that suggested technology, intelligence, presence. The military's response was to create a buffer, a population of modified humans who could interface with whatever was down there, communicate with it, control it, or, if necessary, fight it. Paradise was chosen as the test site because of its isolation and its position directly above the signals. The town's entire population became unwitting test subjects. From 1962 to 1975, the military introduced compounds into the water supply, aerosols into the air, frequencies into the power grid. They were changing the people of Paradise at a genetic level, preparing them for contact. But something went wrong in 1975. People started getting sick, developing tumors, having children with abnormalities. The project was supposedly terminated. The chambers were sealed. The experiments ended. Paradise was allowed to return to normal, except it never really returned to normal. The people who lived in Paradise after 1975 were different. They knew it, but couldn't explain it. They had dreams that weren't dreams, memories that weren't theirs. They could sense things others couldn't. Some could predict weather changes days in advance. Others could feel earthquakes coming. A few claimed they could hear voices from underground, speaking in languages that didn't exist. Jennifer Lawson lived in Paradise from 1980 to 2019. She was 16 when her family moved there, 55 when she was forced to leave. She told me about the changes she experienced. It started with the dreams. We all had them, the same dreams, about being underground, about meeting things. Not people, not animals, something else. They were teaching us, showing us things. Mathematics that hurt to think about, technologies that shouldn't exist, star maps of places that aren't in our sky. Jennifer's blood work shows chromosomal changes that began when she moved to Paradise and accelerated over the decades. She now has 52 chromosomes instead of the normal 46. The extra chromosomes contain genes that geneticists can't identify, genes that code for proteins that shouldn't exist in Earth-based biology.
We thought we were going crazy, Jennifer continued, but we were all going crazy the same way, having the same dreams, developing the same abilities. It was like the town was evolving together, becoming something new together.
The campfire changed everything. When it burned through Paradise, it didn't just destroy homes, it destroyed the containment system that had been keeping whatever was underground dormant. The 1,247 chambers weren't just broken open, they were emptied. Whatever had been in suspended animation was released, and it began to spread. The first signs appeared in December 2018. Animals started acting strange. Birds flew in perfect geometric patterns. Dogs howled in harmony at specific times. Cats gathered in groups, sitting in circles, staring at the ground. Wildlife fled the area entirely. Deer, bears, mountain lions, all gone within weeks. Then the plant growth started. In the middle of winter, in areas where everything had been burned to ash, new plants began growing. But they weren't normal plants. They had metallic sheens to their leaves. Their roots grew in perfect spirals. They produced electromagnetic fields that could be measured with standard equipment. Some produced sounds, actual audible tones that created harmonics when multiple plants grew together. The military noticed immediately. Satellites detected the electromagnetic anomalies. Ground sensors picked up the harmonic frequencies. Beale Air Force Base went on high alert. Special teams were deployed to investigate. What they found triggered the evacuation order that came on March 15, 2019. I've seen the classified report. It describes coordinated biological activity, suggesting distributed intelligence. The plants weren't just growing randomly, they were forming a network, a biological computer spreading across paradise, processing information, sending signals, receiving signals, communicating with something. The something was the former residents themselves. The chromosomal changes that had been accumulating for decades suddenly activated. People started changing rapidly. Not dramatically, they still looked human, but brain scans showed unprecedented neural activity. Blood tests revealed new cell types. Some people developed organs that didn't exist in normal human anatomy. Small nodes along the spine that seemed to be electromagnetic transmitters. David Park was a Paradise resident and volunteer firefighter who stayed after the campfire to help with recovery. He was there when the changes began accelerating. It started in February, he told me. People were getting smarter, like impossibly smart. My neighbor, retired mechanic, guy who barely finished high school, suddenly understood quantum physics, started drawing equations on his garage door, building devices from scrap metal that did things that shouldn't be possible. David showed me photos of some of these devices. Coils of wire and metal that generated energy from nowhere. Crystalline structures that grew themselves when exposed to certain frequencies. Machines that seemed to violate conservation of energy, producing more power than they consumed. The military tried to contain it at first, David continued. Set up a perimeter. Said it was chemical contamination from the fire, but they couldn't stop what was happening to us. We were changing, evolving, becoming something they couldn't control. The tipping point came on March 14, 2019. At exactly 3:33 a.m., every resident of Paradise who had been exposed to the changes experienced the same event simultaneously. They all reported the same thing. Contact. Not voices, not visions. Direct information transfer. Knowledge appearing in their minds. Coordinates. Instructions. A purpose they couldn't fully understand, but felt compelled to follow. The coordinates pointed to locations all over the world. Specific sites in Peru, Egypt, India, Antarctica, and beneath the Pacific Ocean. Sites that archaeologists would recognize as ancient mysteries. Places where impossible structures exist, where technology that shouldn't exist has been found. The residents were being called to these places, summoned, activated. The military's response was immediate and brutal. Martial law was declared. Paradise was quarantined. Residents were told they had 6 hours to pack essential belongings. Buses arrived, hundreds of them. Every resident was assigned to a specific bus going to a specific location. Families were separated. Communities were scattered. The diaspora was deliberate and calculated. But it wasn't a normal evacuation. Each bus went to a different military facility. Residents were processed, tested, categorized. Those showing the most advanced changes were taken to underground facilities. Those showing fewer changes were relocated to monitoring towns, fake communities set up just to watch them. Those who refused to comply disappeared entirely. Martha Williams refused to leave. She and her husband Tom barricaded themselves in their partially burned home. They live-streamed their resistance on Facebook until the stream was cut. Their neighbors reported seeing military vehicles surrounding the house, hearing sounds that didn't make sense, harmonics that made your teeth hurt, seeing lights that didn't cast shadows. Then, nothing. The house was empty. Martha and Tom were gone. No bodies, no evidence, just absence. The official story was that they were safely relocated. But I've tracked every database, every record, every possible paper trail. Martha and Tom Williams ceased to exist on March 15, 2019. Their social security numbers are invalid. Their bank accounts are closed. Their entire digital footprint has been erased. They're not dead. They're erased. This happened to approximately 300 Paradise residents who showed the most advanced changes. They weren't killed. Death leaves traces. They were removed from reality as we understand it, taken to facilities that don't officially exist, subjected to experiments or procedures or transformations that we can only imagine. The remaining residents were scattered strategically. No more than 3 Paradise families were relocated to any single city. They were given new identities, new histories, strict instructions never to contact each other, never to talk about what happened, never to return to Paradise. They were assigned handlers, people who check on them regularly, monitor their behavior, ensure compliance. But humans are social creatures. They find ways to connect, using coded messages on social media, meeting at prearranged locations, sharing information through channels the military doesn't monitor. They've created an underground network of Paradise survivors, and they're planning something. I met with a group of them in an abandoned warehouse in Nevada. 7 former Paradise residents who've maintained contact despite the risks. They showed me how they've changed. Small things that you wouldn't notice unless you knew to look. Eyes that reflect light differently. Skin that has a subtle iridescence in certain light. The ability to generate small electromagnetic pulses that can disrupt electronics. "We're not fully human anymore," one of them told me. Her name was Claire, though that's not her real name. "But we're not fully other either. We're caught between, transitional, and it's accelerating. Every day we change a little more." They showed me their blood under a microscope. Normal blood cells mixed with something else. Crystalline structures that moved with purpose, that responded to thoughts, that formed patterns that looked almost like circuitry. Living circuitry. Biological technology. "The military thinks they're containing us," Claire said, "but they don't understand. We're not the contamination. We're the antibodies. Something is coming. Something that's been sleeping under Paradise for thousands of years. The fire woke it up, and it's preparing us for what comes next." The warehouse meeting was interrupted by something none of us expected. At exactly 11:11 p.m., all 7 Paradise survivors stood up simultaneously, their eyes rolling back, showing only white. They spoke in unison, in a language that sounded like harmonics more than words. The temperature in the warehouse dropped 20 degrees in seconds. Ice formed on the windows despite it being summer in Nevada. And then, just as suddenly, they collapsed. When they regained consciousness minutes later, they all had the same message burned into their minds. "The convergence accelerates. Paradise was the first seal. 6 remain." This was when I learned the true scope of what Paradise represented. It wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern, a global pattern that the military has been desperately trying to hide since the 1940s. Claire pulled out a map she'd been compiling. 7 locations marked with red X's. Paradise, California, Pripyat, Ukraine, Centralia, Pennsylvania, Hashima Island, Japan, Kolmanskop, Namibia, Fordlandia, Brazil, and one location that was just coordinates in the Arctic Ocean, All abandoned towns, all evacuated suddenly, all with official cover stories that don't match the evidence.
Pripyat wasn't just evacuated because of Chernobyl, Claire explained, her voice shaking. The reactor meltdown was caused by what they found underneath. Same pattern as Paradise. Hexagonal chambers. Modified humans. Something sleeping that got woken up. The radiation was perfect cover. No one questions why you can't go back to a radioactive zone.
Centralia, Pennsylvania. Official story. Underground coal fire burning since 1962. Reality. The fire was set deliberately to destroy evidence of what emerged from abandoned mine shafts. Residents reported seeing figures that weren't quite human walking through the smoke, heard voices speaking in mathematical frequencies, developed the same chromosomal changes as Paradise residents. The government bought out the entire town, scattered the population, maintained the fire story as cover. Hashima Island, Japan. Abandoned in 1974 when the coal ran out. Except the coal didn't run out. Japanese government documents, leaked in 2011 after Fukushima when security was compromised, reveal that miners broke through into ancient chambers, found technology that predated human civilization. Workers started changing, developing abilities, receiving the same dreams. Island evacuated in 3 days. Now a tourist attraction where visitors are carefully kept away from the areas that matter. Kulmanskop, Namibia. Diamond mining town abandoned in 1954. Official reason, diamonds depleted. Truth, miners found something else. Structures made of elements that don't exist on the periodic table. Machinery that operated without power sources. The German mining company sealed everything, evacuated everyone, let the desert reclaim the town. But satellite imagery shows heat signatures underground. Something is still active down there. Fordlandia, Brazil. Henry Ford's failed rubber plantation in the Amazon, abandoned in 1934. The failure wasn't about rubber. Ford's workers found ruins beneath the jungle, pre-Columbian structures containing the same hexagonal chambers. Workers reported shared dreams about star maps and technologies. Ford himself visited once, stayed 3 days, ordered immediate evacuation. His personal notes, locked in the Ford archives, reference discoveries that would unmake the world as we know it. The Arctic location has no name. It's a Soviet research station, abandoned in 1991. Officially, it never existed. But former Soviet scientists who've defected describe experiments with consciousness transfer, genetic modification, contact with non-terrestrial intelligence. The station was evacuated when researchers started exhibiting the same changes as Paradise residents. It's now under international quarantine, guarded by submarines from multiple nations. No one is allowed within 100 miles. Each site is a seal, Claire continued, pointing to complex mathematical relationships between the locations. They form a perfect geometric pattern around the Earth, 7 points creating a three-dimensional mandala in space. Paradise was the first to fully break. The others are degrading. When all 7 break. She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. The implications were clear. I started investigating the timeline of events leading to the Paradise evacuation more deeply. The campfire wasn't random. Weather patterns for November 8, 2018 don't support the official ignition story. Wind speeds and directions were wrong. Humidity levels don't match. But what does match is electromagnetic activity from Beale Air Force Base. Beale was conducting an exercise called Threshold Return on November 8th. Officially, it was a communications drill. Unofficially, according to a whistleblower who contacted me before disappearing, they were trying to activate something. Send signals to the chambers beneath Paradise. Wake up what was sleeping. But they lost control. The fire started from underground. The whistleblower, who I'll call Roger, told me in our only communication. Spontaneous combustion along the entire grid of chambers. The entities inside were refusing activation. They burned their way out. The forest fire was secondary, cover for what really happened. Roger provided satellite imagery from November 8th that's never been public. It shows the fire beginning in a perfect hexagonal pattern, matching the chamber grid exactly. The surface fire spread naturally from there, but the origin was clearly artificial. Or rather, the origin was a response, a rejection, a violent awakening. The entities Roger mentioned aren't what you'd expect. They're not aliens in the traditional sense. They're not time travelers or interdimensional beings. They're us. Or rather, they're what we were supposed to become. Humans from a previous civilization, one that reached technological and biological singularity thousands of years ago, then chose to hibernate rather than ascend. This is where the story becomes almost impossible to believe, but I have the evidence. Carbon dating from materials found in the chambers shows ages of 12,000 to 15,000 years, exactly matching the Younger Dryas period, when global civilization supposedly consisted of hunter-gatherers. But the technology in these chambers suggests a civilization more advanced than ours. They had mastered genetic engineering, consciousness transfer, energy manipulation, space travel. But something happened. Something that made them choose suspension over continuation. They sealed themselves in chambers around the world, set biological triggers in the local populations, created a system that would activate when humanity reached a certain technological threshold. That threshold was nuclear weapons. Every nuclear test since 1945 has been sending signals into the Earth, vibrations that slowly weakened the seals, radiation that activated dormant genes in nearby populations. The military figured this out in the early 1960s. That's why atmospheric nuclear testing was banned. Not because of environmental concerns, because we were waking something up. Project Threshold was the military's attempt to control this awakening, to create a buffer population that could interface with the sleepers, to manage first contact with our own species' previous iteration. But they underestimated what they were dealing with. The sleepers didn't want to be managed. They wanted to emerge on their own terms. The Paradise residents who've been changed aren't being invaded or infected. They're being upgraded, returned to what humanity once was, given abilities that were locked away in our DNA for 12,000 years. The extra chromosomes aren't additions, they're restorations. We've been operating with damaged DNA since the Younger Dryas. Paradise residents are being repaired. But the military doesn't see it that way. They see a threat to existing power structures. If every human could have the abilities Paradise residents are developing, governments become obsolete. Militaries become pointless. Economic systems collapse. The entire structure of human civilization transforms. Those in power never willingly give up power. So they're fighting it. The evacuation of Paradise wasn't just about containing the residents. It was about preventing the spread. The changed Paradise residents emit a field, a biological broadcast that activates dormant genes in others. Simply being near them for extended periods triggers the chromosomal changes. The military had to scatter them to prevent a cascade effect. But they're failing. The Paradise residents I met in Nevada told me it's already spreading. Every person they interact with for more than a few hours begins to change. Slowly at first. Dreams that aren't dreams, heightened intuition, increased intelligence. Then faster. New abilities, new organs, new consciousness. We tried to stop it at first, Claire admitted. Stayed isolated, avoided contact. But it wants to spread. It needs to spread. We're like a virus, but instead of making people sick, we're making them whole, completing them, returning them to what they should be. The military knows this. They've been tracking the spread, creating maps of contamination that look like disease vectors, but are actually evolution patterns. Every major city now has at least one changed individual. The exponential growth model suggests complete global saturation within 5 years. Less if the other 6 seals break. Which brings us back to Paradise itself. The town that officially is being rebuilt is actually being transformed into something else entirely. The construction crews aren't building homes. They're building a containment facility disguised as a town. Every structure is designed to suppress electromagnetic frequencies. Every street is laid out to create interference patterns. The entire town is becoming a cage for what's still underground. Because not everything emerged when the chambers broke. The reconnaissance drones sent into the broken chambers never came back. The fiber optic cameras lowered into them showed glimpses of vast spaces that shouldn't exist. Chambers that were bigger on the inside. Passages that led to underground cities. Structures that defied physics as we understand it. One soldier, who was part of the initial exploration team, agreed to talk to me. He's AWOL now, hiding somewhere I won't disclose. He told me what he saw in the chambers. It wasn't empty space, it was full of machinery, I guess. But organic machinery, like if you grew a computer from living tissue. Walls that pulsed with heartbeats, floors that adjusted to your weight, ceilings that showed star systems I didn't recognize, and in the center of each chamber, a platform, like an altar or an operating table, still warm, still wet, like something had just gotten up from it. He also described finding records, not books or computers, but crystalline structures that transmitted information directly into your mind when touched. They told the history of the previous civilization, how they achieved transcendence, why they chose suspension, what they were waiting for. They were waiting for us, he said, his hands shaking as he remembered. For humanity to redevelop, to reach the point where we could either destroy ourselves or evolve. They're the safety net, the backup plan. If we fail, they emerge and try again. If we succeed, they merge with us and we become something new together. The military's response has been to accelerate certain black projects. They're trying to develop weapons that can kill the changed humans. Viruses that target the extra chromosomes. Frequencies that disrupt the new organs. Chemicals that prevent the DNA restoration. They're literally trying to keep humanity broken rather than allow it to heal. But they're also hedging their bets. Secret facilities are studying the changed humans, trying to replicate their abilities through technology rather than biology, creating super soldiers that have the advantages without the consciousness changes. They want the power, but not the evolution. This is where Elon Musk enters the picture again. His Neuralink project isn't just about helping paralyzed people. It's about creating a technological bridge to the abilities the Paradise residents have naturally. SpaceX isn't just about colonizing Mars. It's about evacuating the unchanged humans if the evolution cascade can't be stopped. Tesla's batteries aren't just for cars. They're developing power systems that can function in the electromagnetic environments that changed humans create. Musk has been in contact with Paradise residents, not publicly, through intermediaries. He's offered them resources, protection, a place in his companies. He understands that the change is inevitable and is positioning himself to profit from or survive it. Maybe both. The Paradise residents I met showed me correspondence with various tech billionaires, all trying to understand, to capitalize, to control. But the changed humans aren't interested in being studied or employed. They have their own agenda, one that's becoming clearer as more of them connect. They're building something. Not physically, though there is a physical component. They're building a network, a consciousness network that operates outside normal human perception. Every changed human is a node. Every interaction creates connections. They're recreating the global mind that the previous civilization had, the one that allowed them to transcend physical limitations. We don't need technology, Claire explained. We are the technology, biological quantum computers, living networks, conscious energy. Everything your machines do, we can do naturally. Everything your sciences are trying to understand, we know intuitively. She demonstrated by having all 7 Paradise residents think about the same complex mathematical equation. Without speaking, without writing, they solved it instantly. Then they shared the solution with me, not by telling me, by making me know it. For a moment, I was part of their network. I felt what they felt, knew what they knew, saw reality the way they see it. It was terrifying and beautiful. Reality isn't what we think it is. Matter is conscious. Energy is alive. Space and time are constructs we created to limit ourselves. The universe is infinitely more complex and infinitely simpler than we imagine. And we're on the verge of understanding it, or becoming it. The evacuation of Paradise was the beginning, not the end. The military removed the residents, but they can't remove what Paradise has become. The town itself is changing. The electromagnetic anomalies are increasing. The biological network is growing stronger. Even without human residents, Paradise is evolving. Recent satellite imagery, which I obtained through channels I can't reveal, shows impossible things. Buildings that weren't there before and aren't quite solid. Streets that rearrange themselves at night. Trees that grow in mathematical patterns. Lights in the sky that don't have sources. Paradise is becoming something other than a town. It's becoming a portal. A bridge between what humanity was, what it is, and what it's becoming. The government knows this. That's why they're rushing to build the containment structures, not to contain what's there, but to prevent anyone else from accessing it. Paradise is a doorway, and they're trying to lock it. But doors can be opened from both sides. The other 6 locations are experiencing similar phenomena. Pripyat has radiation readings that spell out mathematical formulas. Centralia's underground fires are burning in patterns that match neural networks. Hashima Island is generating frequencies that can be heard from space. Kolmanskop's sand dunes are forming crystalline structures. Fordlandia's jungle is growing in geometric patterns. The Arctic Station is melting ice in shapes that match the chamber grid. All 7 sites are synchronizing. The Paradise residents can feel it. Every changed human can feel it. Something is building to a crescendo. The convergence Claire mentioned isn't just metaphorical, it's literal. The 7 sites are going to connect, create a global grid, transform the entire planet into what Paradise has become. The Paradise event wasn't a disaster, it was a birth. The birth of Homo Superior. The birth of humanity's next evolutionary leap. The birth of Earth as a conscious entity. The fire that destroyed Paradise revealed what had been hidden for 12,000 years beneath our feet, in our DNA, in the quantum field itself. The potential locked away when the last civilization fell. The beings sleeping in chambers who were not aliens, but our own ancestors, waiting for the moment when their descendants would be ready to remember, to awaken, to become whole again. I'm changing too. It started 3 days ago, shortly after my last meeting with the Paradise residents. The dreams came first, vivid beyond anything I'd experienced, showing me histories that aren't in any textbook, cities of crystal and light, technologies that worked through consciousness rather than machinery, humans who could reshape matter with thought, travel between stars without ships, communicate across galaxies instantaneously. Then came the knowing. Little things I shouldn't know but suddenly do. The color of your walls as you read this, the doubt and excitement mixing in your chest, the decision you're trying to make about whether to believe or dismiss what you're reading.
The memory of your grandmother you haven't thought about in years, but that just surfaced. I can feel it all through the network that's growing stronger every hour. We all can. All of us who've begun the transformation.
Right now, as I write this on November 15th, 2024, there are approximately 23,000 confirmed changed humans globally. But that's just the ones showing obvious signs. The real number is likely 5 times that. By the time you read this, it will have doubled. By December 21st, if the exponential growth continues, it will reach the critical mass of 144,000. That's the number the Paradise residents calculated through complex harmonic equations I can now understand, but couldn't have comprehended a week ago. The harmonic frequency of transformation. The minimum needed to shift the entire planetary consciousness peacefully. Every person who reads this and understands, who feels the truth resonating in their bones, adds to that number. You might be 143,999 or 144,000. The one who tips the balance between transcendence and catastrophe. Let me tell you what really happened in Paradise last week that the military is desperately trying to hide, scrambling their jets, mobilizing their troops, declaring it a chemical spill to keep civilians away. A group of changed humans, over 100 of them, returned to Paradise. Not physically. The military perimeter would have detected that with their heat sensors and motion trackers. They returned through consciousness projection, existing simultaneously in their scattered locations and in Paradise itself. They came to activate something, to awaken something, to complete something that began when the chambers opened. They formed a circle, exactly where the town center used to be, where the old clock tower stood before the fire. Joined hands, began to resonate at a frequency that made the crystalline network underneath Paradise light up like a constellation visible from space. The military's instruments went crazy, electromagnetic readings off the scale, frying electronics within 10 miles. Gravitational anomalies that shouldn't be possible, making objects weigh less or more randomly. Temperature fluctuations of hundreds of degrees in seconds, snow falling while the ground steamed. Then something emerged from underground. Not physically, dimensionally. A presence, an intelligence, the collective consciousness of the previous civilization. Our ancestors, the sleepers, finally fully awake after 12 millennia of dormancy. The message they transmitted wasn't in words, but in direct knowing, downloaded into consciousness like software into a computer. I'll try to translate it into language, though words are pitifully inadequate. Children of the 17th cycle, you stand at the threshold we stood at before. The choice that destroyed us faces you. Transcend or repeat. Unite or fragment. Evolve or reset. We failed 16 times before. Came close, but pulled back from unity at the last moment, choosing separation over connection, maintaining hierarchy over harmony, preserving the illusion of individual supremacy over collective symphony. Each time we reset, we lost more of ourselves, more of our true nature, more of our connection to the living universe that births consciousness like stars birth light. This is the last chance, the final cycle, the omega point. Transcend now or lose the possibility forever. They showed us what transcendence means. Not death, not loss of individuality, but expansion of it beyond current comprehension. Imagine being yourself, but also everyone else simultaneously. Knowing your thoughts, but also having access to all human knowledge that has ever existed. Feeling your emotions, but also experiencing the full spectrum of human feeling without being overwhelmed. Being in your body,
but also able to exist as pure consciousness, to inhabit multiple bodies, to create bodies from light itself, individual and collective simultaneously. The paradox resolved, the unity achieved without loss of diversity. Like instruments in an orchestra, each unique, but creating symphony together.
They also showed us what happens if we fail. The 18th reset won't be like the others. It will be final, absolute, irreversible. Humanity will be reduced to a primitive state permanently. The potential in our DNA will be destroyed, not just locked. The 98% that scientists call junk will be actually turned into junk. We'll become what our myths call cast out of Eden, conscious enough to suffer, but not conscious enough to transcend suffering. Slaves to entropy, prisoners of linear time, cut off from the living universe forever, alone in the cosmos by choice, by failure, by fear. The Paradise residents I've been in contact with are preparing for both possibilities, with the dedication of those who know the stakes. They've created safe zones in 12 locations across the globe, where changed humans can gather if violence erupts. Underground complexes in the Rockies, island sanctuaries in the Pacific, mountain retreats in the Himalayas. They've stored information in crystalline matrices that can survive any catastrophe, that can rebuild civilization from scratch if necessary. They've identified unchanged humans who are close to transformation, whose DNA is already partially unlocked, and are working to activate them through dreams, through synchronicities, through moments of inexplicable knowing. Every dream you have about paradise, about flying, about knowing impossible things, about meeting beings of light, that's them, reaching out through the consciousness field, trying to awaken you gently. But the military isn't giving up. They've activated something called Protocol Omega. I only know about it because a changed human who still works at the Pentagon, maintaining their cover, accessed the files at great personal risk. It's their final solution. If the transformation can't be stopped by conventional means, they'll trigger a global electromagnetic pulse using nuclear weapons detonated in specific patterns in the upper atmosphere. Not random detonations, but precisely calculated to create interference patterns that resonate at the exact frequency of the crystalline network. It won't just destroy electronics globally, sending us back to the pre-industrial age. It's designed to disrupt the crystalline network permanently, to sever the connection between changed humans like cutting neural pathways, to damage the areas of DNA that allow transformation. They'd rather lobotomize humanity, turn us into biological robots, than let it evolve beyond their control. They'd rather rule over ashes than serve in paradise. The date for Protocol Omega is December 20th, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. 1 minute before the convergence begins. They know about the December 21st date. They've known all along. Every ancient calendar that ends on that date they've studied. Every prophecy about transformation they've analyzed. They're planning to strike first, to prevent the 7 sites from connecting, to stop the planetary awakening. They think they can abort humanity's birth into cosmic consciousness. They're wrong. But the attempt will cause immense suffering, potentially millions of deaths, a wound in the collective consciousness that could take generations to heal. This is why the Paradise residents are accelerating their efforts exponentially, why they're taking bigger risks, why they allowed me to document everything without the usual protections. This information needs to spread faster than the military can suppress it. Every person who knows the truth becomes harder to control, harder to deceive, harder to manipulate. Every person who begins to change becomes a node in a network that grows stronger geometrically. Every person who chooses evolution over fear tips the balance toward transcendence. I met with Dr. Sarah Mitchell again yesterday in a location I can't disclose. She's been fully changed for 6 months now, her transformation complete. She wanted to show me something she discovered in her analysis of the Paradise soil samples, something that changes everything about how we understand what's happening, something the military would kill to suppress. The crystalline network isn't just growing randomly or even following preset patterns. It's following patterns laid down millions of years ago by an even earlier civilization. The entire Earth's crust contains a dormant crystalline matrix, like circuit boards waiting to be powered on. Every mountain range is an antenna. Every fault line is a connection. Every underground water system is a conductor. Paradise was just one activation point among thousands. The 7 sites are major nodes, but there are 1,244 minor ones. Stone circles like Stonehenge, pyramids in Egypt, Mexico, China, Bosnia, ancient temples in India, Peru, Cambodia, all built on these nodes by previous civilizations who knew exactly what they were doing. The Earth itself is a conscious entity, Dr. Mitchell explained, her eyes shifting through spectrums I couldn't see, seeing reality in ways I couldn't yet perceive. It's been sleeping, dreaming, waiting for its neurons, us, to develop enough complexity. Human consciousness is how Earth achieves self-awareness. We're not separate from Earth. We're Earth's brain cells, developing enough complexity to achieve planetary consciousness. The transformation isn't happening to us, it's happening through us. We're Earth's way of knowing itself, of joining the community of conscious planets. She showed me mathematical models that track the awakening with terrifying precision. If current trends continue, by December 21st, 2024, at exactly 11:11 a.m. GMT, the entire planetary crystalline matrix will be active. Every human on Earth will be within range of transformation energy. The choice will be stark and immediate: evolve or resist. Those who evolve will experience reality in ways we can barely imagine, seeing all dimensions, knowing all things, being all places. Those who resist will experience what they interpret as apocalypse, but is actually birth. The birth pangs of a planetary consciousness, the screaming of those who refuse to be born. The Paradise children are the key to understanding where this leads. Not the children who lived in Paradise before the fire, but the ones being born to changed humans now. They're different from the first generation of changed humans. They're born already transformed. Their DNA has structures geneticists can't explain. 12 strands instead of 2, chromosomes that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They can do things naturally that first-generation changed humans are still learning with difficulty. I met 3 of these children yesterday. Luna, 6 months old, born to 2 changed Paradise residents. Atlas, 4 months old, whose parents transformed during pregnancy. Sage, 8 months old, conceived after both parents were fully changed. At less than a year old, none of them cry. They communicate directly through consciousness, their thoughts appearing in your mind as clear as spoken words. They can make objects move with focused attention, not through force, but by convincing the objects they want to move. They see through walls, not with X-ray vision, but by perceiving dimensions where the walls don't exist. They don't sleep in any way we understand. Instead, they enter states where they seem to be communicating with presences across space and time. She's teaching us, Luna's mother told me, tears streaming down her face.
We thought we were advanced, but she's showing us we've barely scratched the surface of what's possible. She knows things about the universe that our greatest scientists haven't discovered. She remembers the previous civilizations, can access their knowledge directly. She's what humanity is becoming, not in generations, now. These children are being born everywhere changed humans gather. They're the bridge to whatever comes after human.
The military knows about these children. They've tried to acquire them for study, sending special forces teams, using tranquilizer weapons designed for changed humans. Every attempt has failed spectacularly. The children can't be contained by physical means. They phase out of reality when threatened, existing in dimensions soldiers can't reach. Return when safe, usually with the soldiers' weapons disassembled at the molecular level. They're protected by abilities that violate every law of physics we thought we understood. One child, when cornered, simply convinced the soldiers they didn't exist. And for 3 hours, the soldiers forgot they were real. They're living proof that the transformation is irreversible and accelerating beyond any ability to control.
But here's what the Paradise residents want everyone to understand clearly. You don't need to be in paradise to transform. You don't need to be near a changed human. You don't even need to believe everything in this document. All you need is openness to the possibility that reality is bigger than you've been taught, that human potential is greater than you've been allowed to express, that the feelings you've always had, that something is missing, that life should be more, that you're capable of more, that you're meant for something greater, are accurate. Those aren't delusions. They're memories. Genetic memories of what you were before the fall, before the forgetting, before the locks were placed on your DNA.
The transformation can begin with something as simple as meditation, or a dream that feels too real, or a moment of knowing something you shouldn't know, or reading this document with an open heart. Once it starts, it accelerates naturally. Your DNA knows what to do. It's been waiting for this moment for 12,000 years. The instructions are encoded in what scientists dismiss as junk DNA, the 98% of our genetic code they claim has no function. It all has function. It's the locked library of human potential, the compressed files of God consciousness, and the key is consciousness itself. I'm going to share something the Paradise residents taught me, a technique for beginning activation. It's simple but powerful, used by the previous civilization to maintain their connection to universal consciousness. Tonight, before you sleep, lie down and place your hands over your heart. Feel your heartbeat. That rhythm is synchronized with Earth's rhythm, the Schumann resonance. Focus on that beat. Then speak these words, out loud or in your mind. I remember who I am. I remember why I came. I remember what I'm here to do. I give permission for my true nature to emerge. I choose evolution. I choose transformation. I choose to remember. Then pay attention to your dreams. They won't be normal dreams. They'll be memories, communications, activations. You might dream of paradise burning and feel joy instead of fear. You might dream of flying through space without a ship. You might dream of speaking with beings of pure light who feel familiar. You might dream of your DNA unraveling and reweaving itself into patterns of light. These aren't dreams. They're your consciousness reconnecting to the field, to the network, to what you really are. But be warned, once you start, there's no going back. The transformation is one way. You can't unknow truth. You can't relock DNA that's been unlocked. You can't return to sleep once you've begun to wake. You can't go back to believing you're just a biological machine once you remember you're an infinite consciousness having a temporary physical experience. The Paradise residents want you to choose consciously, with full knowledge of what you're choosing. You're choosing to leave behind everything that defines current human existence. Competition that says you must defeat others to succeed. Scarcity that says there's not enough for everyone. Separation that says you're alone in the universe. Death as finality that says this life is all there is. You're choosing to embrace collective consciousness while maintaining individuality. Unlimited energy drawn directly from the quantum field. Connection with all life, from bacteria to beings from other galaxies. Death as transition, not ending. A simple change of costume in an eternal play. The government's response to this document will be swift and predictable. They'll claim it's fiction, the ravings of a conspiracy theorist, delusion brought on by trauma from covering the Paradise Fire, disinformation designed to cause panic. They'll produce experts to debunk every claim with scientific-sounding explanations. They'll create alternative explanations for the Paradise evacuation that sound plausible. They might even stage events to discredit the information. False flag operations designed to make changed humans look dangerous. But notice what they won't do. They won't let you visit Paradise. They won't explain the military perimeter that requires shoot-to-kill authorization to cross. They won't address the missing 50,000 people who were scattered and silenced. They won't explain why every Paradise resident's social media went dark on the same day. They won't show you current satellite images of Paradise. They won't let independent scientists test the soil. Some of you reading this are Paradise residents living under assumed names. You've been living in fear, forbidden to tell your story, threatened with worse than death if you speak. This is your permission to speak. The network is strong enough now to protect you. The changed humans can shield you from retaliation. Find others like you. Connect. Share what you know. Every voice adds to the chorus that can't be silenced. Every testimony makes the truth harder to deny. Some of you are military personnel involved in containing Paradise. You've seen things that haunt you, done things that shame you, followed orders that violated everything you believe in. It's not too late to choose differently. The changed humans don't hold grudges. They're incapable of it now. They understand you were following orders, acting from fear, trying to protect what you thought needed protecting. Join them. Help them. The transformation accepts everyone, even those who fought against it, especially those who fought against it, because you have the most to gain from forgiveness. Some of you are government officials who know the truth, who've read the classified reports about chromosomal anomalies, who've seen the satellite images of the crystalline growth, who understand what's coming and are terrified. You have a choice. Continue serving a dying paradigm that will be swept away regardless, or help birth a new one. History will remember either way, but only one choice leads to a future worth living in. Only one choice leads to you being remembered as midwives to transcendence rather than failed guardians of limitation. Some of you are scientists who've noticed the anomalies, the impossible readings, the violations of known physics, the biological changes that shouldn't exist. Your training tells you to dismiss them, to find conventional explanations, to maintain the paradigm. But your intuition tells you something else. Trust your intuition. It's the part of you that's already connected to the network. Share your data. Break your NDAs. Reveal what you know. Science is supposed to be about truth, not control. As I finish writing this, I can feel the network growing stronger with each word. Every sentence typed increases the connection. Every truth shared accelerates the transformation. The Paradise residents are with me now, not physically, but in consciousness. All 47 I met, plus hundreds more I've never met physically. They're adding their energy to these words, their intention, their invitation, their love. And yes, it's love. Pure, unconditional love for humanity, for Earth, for consciousness itself. Paradise, California wasn't destroyed. It was transformed into something beyond a physical town. It became a portal, a doorway between what humanity was and what it's becoming, a bridge across the abyss of forgetting.
The 50,000 people who fled weren't victims. They were seeds, scattered by necessity, planted in communities worldwide, growing into something unprecedented. Each one a lighthouse in the darkness, calling others home.
December 21st, 2024 approaches rapidly. 36 days from when I write this. By the time you read it, even less. The convergence is coming, whether we're ready or not. The 7 sites will connect, creating a geometric pattern around the Earth that will activate everything. The planetary consciousness will wake up. Humanity will face its evolutionary moment. The choice that has been delayed for 12,000 years can't be delayed any longer. The Paradise residents have a final message for humanity. We are you, just a few steps ahead on the path. We're not superior, just further along in remembering what we all are. We're holding the door open against tremendous pressure to close it, holding space for transformation against those who would prevent it, holding love for all, even those who fear us, hunt us, try to destroy us. Paradise burned so humanity could be reborn from the ashes. Phoenix was always our destiny. The fire was always going to come. The only question was whether we'd rise from it or be consumed by it. We're rising. Join us. The sky isn't the limit anymore. This is the complete truth about Paradise, California. This is why 50,000 people fled overnight in March 2019. Not from fire, not from contamination, not from chemical spills. From transformation so profound that staying would have triggered changes the world wasn't ready to see. Now the world has no choice but to be ready. The labor has begun. The birth is imminent. The new humanity is crowning. The underground chambers are opening at all 7 sites. The crystalline network is pulsing with life, growing by the hour. The changed humans are reaching critical mass. The children of transformation are being born in increasing numbers. The military is preparing its final, desperate moves. Governments are choosing between evolution and extinction. December 21st convergence is inevitable. You have 36 days to prepare, not with supplies or bunkers or weapons. Those are useless against what's coming. Prepare with consciousness, with openness, with courage to become what you've always been beneath the limitations. Paradise isn't a place anymore. It's a state of being. And it's spreading faster than any fire, more unstoppable than any flood, more transformative than any force in human history. Every person who reads this complete document is changed by it. The information itself carries transformation codes embedded in the frequency of truth. The words activate dormant DNA sequences. Understanding triggers evolution. You've been warned. You've been invited. You've been activated. The process has already begun in you. You can feel it, can't you? That stirring in your chest? That sense that everything is about to change. That knowing that you're part of something bigger. Welcome to the transformation. Welcome to the real paradise. Welcome to what humanity becomes next. Welcome to your true nature. Welcome home. The 50,000 who fled paradise didn't flee from something. They fled to everywhere, carrying the seeds of transcendence, planting tomorrow in today, watering it with truth, nurturing it with consciousness, preparing the harvest of human potential. December 21st, 2024. Remember that date. Remember who you really are. Remember why you chose to be here now. Remember what you came to do. Remember that you're not alone. Remember that you never were. Paradise is everywhere now. The transformation is in you now. The evolution has already begun. The future is being born through us. This is not the end of the story. This is not even the beginning. This is the moment between what was and what will be. This is the threshold. This is the choosing. This is paradise. And paradise is you. And that's the story they didn't want you to know. Wild, right? If you made it this far, respect. You're one of the real ones. Subscribe if you want more. Hit the bell, drop a comment with your theory. I'm Dimitri. Keep questioning everything. See you next time.